We'll call this meeting to order. Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mayor Mixon.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Billingsley.
Present.
Councilor Curry. Here. Councilor Howe. Here. Councilor Humbert.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for a motion for the approval of the agenda with the amendment to move proclamations up next.
I make a motion to approve the agenda with adding the Proclamation 2023-01 up to the.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we will come to the proclamation. And I'm going to step around front. Pete, if you want to, I don't know where, there he is. Pete. And anyone that wants to be up here, please come on up. Right here, Pete. What are you doing? Yeah, stand. Yeah, everyone who wants to, because Diane's seeing this. She can see us.
I know, I'm on the back.
Oh, we're live streaming. So it is my privilege, but don't cry, I'm already starting to get there. The Village of Angel Fire has a proclamation 2023-01 that Diane Peterson Shall We Dance Day. Whereas our community reflects on the significant contributions of Diane Peterson from the very first year she arrived in Angel Fire, and whereas she provided an era of excellence with her constant creative energy, and whereas she has spread an atmosphere of joy and exercise, and whereas she inspired the entire community, young and old, to dance, whereas she served on various committees and organizations to help improve the village, whereas her friends, family, and many acquaintances know her for her dancing, her humor, her talent, her faith, her stubborn heart, and her kisses. Now, therefore, I, Joe Mixon, Mayor of the Village of Angel Fire, present this proclamation as Diane Peterson Shall We Dance Day in appreciation of all her contributions to our community, and do hereby proclaim that forever, September 26, 2023, as Diane Peterson Shall We Dance Day in Angel Fire. Oh.
Michael, you want this?
I think they're still taking pictures real quickly. Here, let's hold this up. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, mine. We're fine. So when are you guys gonna have dances? Are there any?
Okay, thank you. We'll get back to order, please. Do I have a motion, please, to accept the consent agenda?
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? And we have one request from the audience. Would you still like to speak, sir? I will turn the floor over to Philip Brown.
At the APRO meeting, we were waiting in line. Several men were complaining loudly, trying to use a lot of words, say nasty things, about the slash program and how we were paying more and more and not really getting any benefit. I have one little example, and I've already talked to the chief, and he's gonna fix it. The example is, we went in June, we had a fellow that used to pick them up, and he's gone. And we got signed with the city in June to pick it up. Here we are, almost into October. Where's the pickup? I think it's an example of things that are falling in the crack. We were supposedly number 2. So again, I don't want to, I'm sure it's going to get solved, but I did want to bring it to your attention. There are a lot of people unhappy, I think, with the slash program. And in fact, the costs seem to go up. The service is lacking in some ways. Thank you very much.
Maybe just really loud. What was your name again? I'm sorry.
Philip Brown, I live on 120 Sierra Blanca Trail.
Okay, and we'll go to governing body report. We'll move along. Manager Madrid.
Mayor and council, I use this time to give you an overview of some things related to our budget that are not actually part of our budget. These are things that came to light as I've been your finance director for a couple of months now that need to be addressed in the future. And they are just best practices. And Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good, because feel free to jump in or disagree or add on if you like. In relation to our budget, and you'll see this as we go through the specifics, Angel Fire does not utilize a system of interfund transfers for budgeting or financial management. And that is a best practice that for the years that I look back, we have not used. For example, in our debt service funds, we normally have funds dedicated to make bond payments, to make loan payments. If it were for the water improvement system, the money would be budgeted or would be available in the water budget. A transfer would be appropriated from water to debt service to pay off that debt. It's a lot easier to track that way, and it reminds you that you need to make those debt payments. We don't do that. We need to. We'll move toward that before the next budget. The other thing is we need to develop or upgrade, if I haven't seen one, an investment policy. We have a lot of liquid cash. And we're not allowed to invest in anything risky. But we could purchase CDs, we could participate in the state treasurer's overnight investment fund. They have to be basically risk-free, but they earn more than zero. The way that we handle our pooled cash all in one place, we really should move away from that and tie cash to funds. We have some of that in place, but to reconcile and account for all that cash is really cumbersome. It creates a lot of opportunity for error, and it isn't clear. Cash that is intended for certain purposes may be sitting in that account, but we can't tell. It looks like it's unrestricted, but it's not. Another thing that we should consider is evaluating all of our debt structure, consolidating or eliminating some of our NMFA loans. Some of them are old, some of them should be refinanced, some of them should be paid off. One thing that I did want to talk about, I had a question from one of the counselors about a line item comparison. And what I wanted to talk about was in any local government, and this is what the Department of Finance expects, is our budgetary control is primarily at the fund level. You cannot overspend at the fund level. It's against state statute. Secondary control is at the category level. By categories, there's usually personnel and benefits, operating costs, and capital items. Those are the three that have line items within them that you can adjust. But the primary control is at the fund level. The line items are primarily as a management tool, and they're very easy to adjust. If we wanted to move $100 from office supplies to office furniture, those are two line items. That's a simple transfer. But it is a good management tool because you don't want departments hoarding their office supply money, buying furniture every year. But it's not necessarily a budgetary control. The last thing that, and Michael, I'm sure will elaborate on this, is our cash balances. Those are the primary area that need to be exact. And in the beginning, they need to be exact. The projected ending cannot be negative. We cannot finish a fiscal year in the red in any individual fund. And you'll see that on the summary sheet. Anything else you want to add, Michael?
Yeah, I think you explained most of it well. I can take a few items off my list.
Okay, that's my report.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you incorporate into the budget any more pay raises above the 8% that was given?
No, that, I'm glad you asked that, Mayor, because that's basically the only thing that was adjusted between interim and final. And let me explain why. Right before I got here, budget hearings were held, and even a day that I was here, with the department heads, and I believe there was one with the council. And all of the categories and requests were incorporated into that interim budget. So I basically did not touch those. I did adjust all of the salary budgets down to the actual amount as they were 2 weeks ago. Because that incorporated the 8% increase that was designated by the governing body. And generally, you adjust your budget to whatever compensation you want to pay, not what you pay to whatever's in your budget. So, short answer is no, I did not. They are budgeted at current levels in every department.
But so since the pay scale from the police department separate is not gonna be incorporated in this, I'm gonna ask that you incorporate with council's approval an 18% raise for all, field officers, personnel in the police department.
Okay, Mayor, and I, without objection, I'll consider that a directive, so it needs to be voted on. But this directive does not need to be incorporated into this budget. This budget will handle that already. If we wait and incorporate it here, we'll have to adjust it, we have another special meeting, and wait for approval from DFA, which may be 30, 45 days from now. That budget in that particular department can handle this today.
Then as a
There is-
directive,
Okay.
you can do that.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm confused here. First off, why aren't we including the chief?
If the chief wants to come up, then that's fine.
Well, no,
But I would-
I don't mean in.
Oh, you mean as a rate? Well, because he gets a, evaluation that's
Right,
on, and it comes up, it's late now, but we will do an evaluation as soon as the final budget goes in too. This is to ensure that the rest of the officers get a raise also immediately.
okay, so we've got X amount of money already set aside for police, 400 and some.
Yes,
Specifically,
it's in there.
Counselor, we have about, compared to last year's actual expenses and prior year budget and current year budget, we have about 95,000 in excess of budget over last year that wasn't expended, which is more than enough to cover the requested 18%. 18% is probably 65,000.
Right, right.
So there is enough right now.
So what you're saying is there's a surplus.
There's a built-in surplus that will accommodate this request.
So the raises could have been, when I looked at it, and they could have been given. So I'm just asking that we do give them in the morning.
So is this retroactive to 1 July?
We can't do retroactive by the state statutes. We cannot do that in municipal government.
No, the only time that can be done is if it's part of a collective bargaining agreement with a union.
Right.
Because negotiations are pending. This isn't the case here.
So you said that we're waiting to do the chief's evaluation.
We have an evaluation.
When
I'll have it.
was that due?
It was due last month, I think, 6 months in July, mid of July.
So,
Yes. We're gonna, I mean.
so
we're
we've
gonna set
denied the chief a raise
that.
for
No,
3, no?
no.
Because, so help me understand, why are we 3 months late on his evaluation?
Oh, we just haven't had a time to put it together. We've talked about it. We just haven't done it yet. We'll set it up for as soon as he can do that.
How,
Like this week.
but I mean, but how is it just now coming to, I mean, if it was due if it should have been done in July, then we should have done it in July.
I just answered that.
But I guess, I don't know, it's an unsatisfactory answer, to be honest. Wouldn't you like it? We're denying this man, but it's like, if it just seems, it's just wrong.
Counselor,
That it's been drug out. I'm sorry, I'm getting frustrated.
maybe I can help. An evaluation is not a guarantee of anything.
Sure,
I could get a bad evaluation and, sorry, Morris, you live with what you got, and that's
okay,
fine.
that's fair, but at least you got your evaluation.
Right. The other thing is, as an at-will, and I'm one, I don't have rights to anything. If I got fired tonight, I don't have the right to appeal.
And all I'm asking is
It's
that we put
different.
in
It's different.
a raise for the police department. That would bring from the 14% that they got last July, the 8% this July, That brings them up to a 40%, which puts them in the range of what they were asking. We have supervisors are supposed to be given raises to their police department, and they need their evaluations too. I mean, I think we're behind in all our departments. That doesn't mean we're not gonna get them caught up.
Okay,
But this would
Yeah.
just, and it would make sure that we got that, even though we didn't have
heads that need
a separate.
evaluated, and that process for the ones that I supervise has to take place pretty soon, because I think by next meeting, I will have been here 6 months, and I can do the evaluations also. So it is a need for a lot of department heads.
It is.
I guess I've asked a few different times for, and I know you weren't necessarily the person I've asked, for us to do a comparison to other municipalities in the area, in the general area. Because a lot of times I'm just presented with these, we should raise it to this dollar amount. And I mean, I just spot checked a few municipalities today and, it seems like we're pretty good in what we pay, like above everybody else. So I guess I'd like to be presented with something more before I'm asked to do the across the board increase person. I know I'm never a popular person to say that, but I just want to know what other people are paying other municipalities for the same roles before, because I'm just going off of, we should just give a raise. And then, before long, I don't know how we're comparing against other places.
So my research tells me that we're about to hit the bottom of state police, Colfax County, Red River, and other entities. And anytime you turn the news on or read a newspaper, it tells you how short New Mexico and the country is in certified police officers. We know what Albuquerque's doing. They're making huge bumps. We had an opening here a while back that we were gonna fill, and did we get any qualified? No. Our police officers' retirement is based on their high 36 months. There's a lot of towns in this state that will hire any and all of our police officers. And I submit to you, if we don't do something quick, come Christmas Day, we might be left with one police officer. So it's our responsibility as council to get on top of this. And I don't
So do you
understand,
agree that we should give them?
I don't understand why the 18% didn't start 1 July.
I think that was,
Because it wasn't approved.
I
And it
think
had to
that
come
was
back
Matt's
through.
frustration,
Yeah, oh, I agree with that.
because the budget wasn't done. Had the budget been done
Right.
at the proper time, we could have addressed this, but it wasn't.
You're totally right.
Now, my question, and I think this is where Matt was going with the chief, is we're waiting on the evaluation, and we are not, and whatever raise may come with that evaluation won't happen until after the evaluation, but we don't even know when we're going to have the evaluation. Isn't that kind of where you were going, Matt, with
I mean,
this?
if it was supposed to be done 3
I mean,
months ago, then
yeah, and it hadn't been
why
done.
hasn't it been
And
done?
it may
Same
not be
reason none
done
of the
for 2
police
more months.
officers'
And
evaluations have been done in a couple of years.
But
I mean, it's not.
there's a
it's-
difference between,
We,
okay, so this is a question. Who does the police officer's evaluations? Is it you?
the
Is it the
chief
manager?
does. The
Okay,
chief
when
does.
has he been, when was he directed to start doing evaluation?
He knew about it when he was hired, but I'm the one that does his, and we've tried to get together on it and haven't had a chance
But
to.
but just because he didn't do his evaluation
No, no,
doesn't
no,
mean
no,
that he
that
doesn't
doesn't
get
have
his.
anything to do with.
That's
his.
what I'm saying
He's
though.
been out of town, he's been training, he's been putting in systems. That's.
Okay,
Well, I don't know about that.
okay, that's all I can say.
I did not intend to bring this up, but there's your salary manager, from what I'm seeing, and the fire chief's salary have shot way up.
8%. They went
No,
up
no,
8%.
no. He was hired at 103,
He was.
and the pay scale now has him at 130.
So he got a percentage whenever, just which is customary for anybody in the whole village. If you take on another department, you get a percentage. So when he took over finance, which he's been working day and night at to get this budget together with Michael's manager, he got a bump, and it's temporary. It's even written temporary, that as soon as a finance director is, and I've decided, because it would be more proper to wait to hire a finance director until after the election,
Right.
this late in the game. So his is temporary until we hire a finance director.
So how much?
He's also taking on a percentage of streets because he's now running the streets department. So that's his bump is
Right.
temporary except for the 8%.
So how much are we paying Michael to do what he did for the budget?
I don't know that.
It's gonna be,
Is that a Heather
we
question?
have a maximum of 20,000. But I don't think we're even halfway there.
No, because he did most of the correcting of the budget.
Absolutely. We couldn't have done this without him. And I'm not saying that because he's on the phone. We couldn't have done this without him.
Yes,
Mayor,
yes, sir.
I can address that. If I sat down and did a bill right now, it might be about 5,000.
Okay,
And that includes the quarter report and the budget.
okay. Thank you. Does that answer it?
It answers that question.
Okay.
So the 8%, just so that the public knows, it's my understanding that 6.5% of that went to para.
Yeah.
So the employees didn't even get that. And
You got
another
a 2%, was
was
that right?
leaving
Right.
2%. And of that 2%, 1% went to something else. I don't know what it was, but
Probably health insurance.
that's what, so they got 1%, but we keep saying 8%.
But if you look in the budget too, each supervisor has the ability to give raises in their departments.
So you're telling me every department has a surplus?
They've
built
all
in?
asked, they came in March, was it March? They came and discussed what they wanted for their budget
Right.
and how much they wanted in there for their raises.
Well, I was here that day.
Yeah.
I was here for hours.
Yeah.
And I never once heard a number for raises.
Is that, I mean, they're here. I don't know what to say, but they do add that into the budget.
Well,
It's in there.
I'm learning a lot tonight because I
That's
thought
fine.
I would have already known.
Well, Counselor, I don't think you ever seen something like this before.
Well,
It's
true.
a study, so
been a
I'm glad
while.
you're studying.
That's why we.
All right, so I'm understanding your directive.
Only if council approves it.
Okay, but if council approves it, 18%.
And this week is a pay week. Payroll is already run. It'll be next payday.
You don't approve?
No, I'm just trying to understand maybe some of like the back end legalities of what does or does not come before us. Do we have to, does it? I guess
You don't
an
vote.
easier question is, why are we just now talking about an 18% raise for them? I mean, because this happened apparently months ago, and it's sat and it's festered and nothing's been done. So why just now?
We did talk about it in executive session. and
Sure.
I remember exact words from people that we don't bring up. But since then, we've been trying to work on how do we get it into the budget without a separate pay scale. So I'm just asking that you agree that we do that for
Yeah, we
them.
should give them a raise. That part I agree. I just don't understand why it's taken so
Well, it's taking
long.
so long.
And why, because I think that if you started digging in, you would get other stories than what you're saying right now about, well, we've tried and we've done this. I just think that we've completely mismanaged their budget and they're upset because of it. And they rightfully should be. We should have given them this pay raise a long time ago. It should not have come to just like this. It shouldn't have come to this.
It was your vote in executive session.
Because what you told me in executive session wasn't true. And
That's not true.
yes, it is, ma'am. I'm not here to get into that. I'm just,
We shouldn't really be discussing
No.
I agree.
items.
No. but that's
Okay.
untrue. So is that a yes or a no before we move on?
I don't see any objection.
No.
Oh,
Do we
I
need to
agree
vote?
with the 18%.
Thank you.
No, you haven't voted, I don't think. It's just a recommendation.
No,
Where
it's
was
just a
I?
recommendation. You were done.
Oh, yes, that was good. Oh, I asked, I was asking Michael if he has anything to add. Yeah.
Counselors, I cannot address the issue of the 18%, since this is the first I've heard of it. I do know that in the initial draft, in the paperwork of the initial draft of the budget that was sent to DFA last May, it was noted in there that 8% was across the board. Now I can't say for certain that it was incorporated, but I do know from the notes that that was the intent. If I understand what you're wanting to do right now is with the field officers, with the raise on them, in theory, if you approve the budget tonight as is, all of the underlying assumptions are by default approved too, which in this case means that the salary schedule that was used to develop the payroll numbers in the budget is the maximum you can pay without it coming back to the governing body for approval.
Okay.
That said, by default, in order to do 18% long-term for the whole year, you're gonna have to do a budget adjustment somewhere in the near future, and that would be your approval for those increases.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
And next we have a staff report from Chief Bobbitt.
I made this one pretty short since I know we have a long agenda.
Thanks, sir.
Mayor, councilors, manager, clerk. So far this year, we've ran 332 calls. Just wanted to give you some quick updates on some things that have gone on since the last staff report that I gave you. We are helping Black Lake with that prescribed fire going on. They're paying for all of our people. We're getting reimbursed for all of our man hours that we utilize. Currently, we are working on some thinning. That way the fire line is a little bit more established for the prescribed fire. Slash update, thank you, Mr. Brown. I did not know that was an issue. We will take care of it. I apologize. We did get new keys for the ACI burner. So we're working on moving it out of the slash pit so we can start utilizing that one a little bit more efficiently. And then Mayor Pro Tem, you had asked about or mentioned a contract with Eagle Nest.
Sure.
I just wanted to give you an update on what that contract actually is in the process. It's currently with our attorney now. I did meet with the Eagle Nest Village Council last week to discuss it in detail. Their attorney has looked at it and approved it, or what it looks like now. I told them that we really couldn't approve it until our attorney had to look at it. And so that's where it's currently at. Our MOA, and it does include like retroactive pay when we actually started covering for them. And then as far as like budget, I've been kind of working. The interim budget for us was a little inaccurate, and I had to cut approximately $800,000 from one of my budgets. But we feel like we can manage with what you had, or what's gonna be presented to you tonight, we feel like we can manage with it.
Okay, Chief, I'm confused again. So for the public, we do a draft interim, we do a final interim, and we do the final, which is what we're talking about tonight. Now, in your final interim, you were at $1,787,000. In the budget we're looking at tonight, you're almost identical. So I don't know where the 800,000 is.
Which one of the accounts are you looking at?
I'm looking at the account that is under salary and wages.
So I have two different funds that I manage, two different expenses. There's the general operating fund, and then there's the special revenue fund. Some of the projected revenue of the special revenue was inaccurate. I don't know if that had been changed in yours or not. I would have to default to Manager Madrid as far as the amount there.
Well, I don't know either, because this is the first time we've gotten a real budget.
Okay.
The first two times, we got that one pager for each department, and they didn't tell us anything. So there's no way I can go from this back to that and understand it. So I don't know where the 800,000 is.
Counselor, you bring up a good point. That's another thing. I did not rely on past budgets to develop this one, except for the input from the department heads. I relied on actual expenses and revenues that are projected to come in, balances that are there that haven't been spent. So you could fairly say I disregarded this.
Okay.
And started from scratch.
Well, that's all council had to work with.
Right, I understand.
That's true.
I had more tools and a little more time, and I think we have a better budget.
Okay.
It's still a perfect budget. It is adjustable. It is a work in progress, but it's pretty good. I'm pretty sure DFA will approve it. One more thing that I left out earlier is that working with Michael, we also, throughout the entire process, worked with our auditor, Robert Cruciero, and our analyst, Rick Chavez from DFA. So they were aware and they participated in the plan and the process to develop this budget.
Right.
This will not be a surprise to either one of them.
So what's scary is that DFA approved the first two budgets, which were greatly out of whack.
Isn't there just one?
And
There was
for
only the
DFA
interim.
process.
Yeah, there was just one, the interim that went in, and now it's the final.
Well, both of them came back approved.
Well, and I can answer that partially because, like I said before, on the summary sheet for the budget, beginning cash balance plus your revenues, plus your investments, minus your expenditures gets you to a positive balance. DFA will often give you the leeway to manage your own budget within those parameters. And it's got to be something that's way out in left field for the question. So that is, it's not a DFA answer, that's my best answer.
All right, well, as you and I discussed earlier, one of those summary sheets was off $1 million.
So where did you,
Ask budget questions.
start ahead
That was just a question, any questions for Chief Auditor?
That's fair. This can be answered in the budget. This is a budget question. That's fair.
Is there any questions for Chief?
No.
I mean, you're gonna stay your point in the budget, right?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Of course. Good job.
And next we have committee reports, and we have Jay Mitchell, who is going to give a committee report from the Airport Advisory Report.
Okay, good evening, Mayor. All right, let's talk something that's actually improving around here, the airport. We had a meeting on the 14th of September. It was delayed for a little bit due to quorum issues, but we all did get together. And I'm gonna go through the 4 grants that we're currently in our discussions, and then just give a quick update on the airport and try to keep this short because I know you got budget. And hello, Michael. The 4 budgets, the fuel truck grant that we received about 2.5 years ago, it has been executed. The new fuel truck is on order. It was back ordered due to, like everything, any heavy vehicles, if you've ordered them in the last couple of years, they're back. That will greatly benefit the airport because the fuel truck that we've had has been unusable for the 100 low lead, for the standard GA fuel, gas, if you will, which has caused a lot of people either have to go use the self-serve pump or go someplace else for fuel. A lot of people go someplace else for fuel. We did receive a hangar grant 2 years ago. That hangar grant has changed. It's state funding, approximately $335,000. That money is good to us until 30 June, or good to the county until 30 June 26. Based on recommendations from the advisory committee, we've gone from going to 4 line private hangars to doing a large bay hangar. One, we can get more bang for the buck with it, a single bay hangar. And also, depending on the size of that, and we're trying to get it up, is upward to 100 by 100. Right now, they're talking 65 by 75, which is a little bit small. If that hangar is funded as a smaller hangar, the locally based aircraft that are here and right now, and I'll talk about that just for a second. There was, 3 years ago, we had 6 locally based aircraft. Went down to 5, now we're down to 3. That affects federal funding. A lot of folks aren't that come in here, base their aircraft somewhere else. Some of it's due to insurance. Angel Fire, I can tell you personally, is a high place to insure an aircraft because it's one of the most dangerous airfields in North America. It's 4th highest, and it does have an accident rating on it. It's easy to see with the markers going down the highway. So we've only got 3 permanently based aircraft here, and so some of the grant funding we have to put in other needs for by showing traffic of chartered aircraft, the upcoming 135 chartered operations, as well as other GA aircraft. Our traffic has been up the last month after being down for almost a year. So we did get better traffic throughout July and August, and I haven't seen the September figures yet, but we were doing pretty well. But so we're going to go to a single large bay hangar. If it's the smaller of the 2 hangars that we have, the existing hangar, which is 100 by 90, but smaller than that, we'll move the locally based aircraft to the smaller hangar because we can all fit in there. Everything would be fine. That'll leave the larger hangar that's currently there to be the revenue generator. So when you hangar aircraft that are coming in here, be the single engine all the way up to jets, they're charged at a different rate. Larger your hangar, the larger aircraft you can get in there, the larger you can charge on those fees. So we'll use the larger hangar for transient. That hangar, as I said, the money dies on 30 June 26. It is out right now for redesign. The location's already been selected, and the funding has been secured for it. So we'll see how the bids come in. We did get another new grant. This is a federal FAA grant that is good through 30 September 27. It was for $245,087. It's for apron repair approval and complete resurfacing of the apron and going out towards the taxiways. That will have to be done similar as the runway was done in warmer weather. So we're looking at sometime, late May, June, July to try to get the bid out to get the apron fixed up. And that will include new tie downs, which will give us a new parking arrangement for the larger aircraft coming in here. We did get approval on the county got approval on the grant application for the 135 operations. That's what people have been talking about, commercial traffic. So 135 is a commercial carrier that can hold either scheduled or unscheduled service. This will be scheduled service. I won't go into any details because it's still to be worked out on the schedule and the locations, but we could be looking upwards of 5 to 6 scheduled flights a day. These are maximized right now at 9 passenger aircraft, which can be, if this shows that there is a need for more passenger space coming into Angel Fire, if this is a successful operation, that grant could actually be increased up to a 35 passenger aircraft. So we're looking forward to getting that in and getting those operations started this next year. And again, can't give you the locations yet, can't give you all the timing yet. That's up to the carrier that's under contract. The airport parking lot, the big mud pit we got out there, the county has had for about 2 years now, they've had the millings that came off of 435. They committed to regrading that parking lot, fixing the drainage on it, and bringing those millings in to give us a hardened surface for those folks that, as you notice, going by the airport, a lot of people leave cars out there. Those are folks that fly in privately, either through charter or their own aircraft. This would give them a better parking lot and again, increase our fees on coming in with those. The biggest thing that we're looking to do out at the airport, and a couple of the other advisors are here with me today, is really just get the airport improved to a professional level so that it is attractive to a professional flight-based operations company to come in and look at. That would be the best thing for Angel Fire, it'd be the best thing for the county. It would get the county out of flight-based operations, which they're not really qualified in, they really don't want to do, but they need a professional FBO to come in and look at it. And in order to do that, that's where I go back to the lodger's tax. So the county did approve, after getting pushed on in a while, the way we are currently going to expend the lodger's tax that came to Angel Fire. We're going to go back to the reimbursement expenditures, so we don't have to go through the long drawn out PO process that the county has, because we were losing a lot of goods trying to go through the process. Every time we'd order something, by the time we went through the process, it was either no longer available or the price changed. We had to start the process over. So we'll be acquiring the material. We'll be paying for it cash up front, private cash. And once the whatever's been purchased is arrived, right now there's 2 picnic tables on the way, and we're ordering 4 40 by 40 tables, 40 inch by 40 inch, with 16 chairs to set up a lounge area in the back there and upgrading the computer system. So as the lodger's tax money that is currently left, a little over $17,000 from Angel Fire, that will be expended before the first of the year, and we'll be back requesting some of the other repairs we want to do at the facility. Our repair part of the hangar that's currently existing, get it cleaned up, get the installation fixed, get the doors fixed, which we do have a partial grant for, and then start cleaning it up in order to eventually be able to house either an A&P, an aircraft mechanic, or a professional flight-based operation. So we're moving forward on it, just trying to make it a better airport. So, and I stand by for any questions.
I may have missed this, but the grant for the new hangar,
Yes,
is that been approved or is it still?
No, it was approved 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
The money's
Okay.
been there, originally, Councilor and Mayor, it went out for a bid as a box hangar, 4 boxes,
Yeah.
4 separate hangars. They tried to keep the bid, they wanted the bid to come in essentially under $500,000, and there was only one company that came in with the bid, and it was almost double that. So we had to pull back on it and start looking at it. Prices for materials have now come down, especially the metal buildings. And there's a couple other contractors that have made themselves aware to us that are willing to look at it for less than the original contract.
So do you have an idea when some decision may be made on that?
The preliminary plans for that are being done by Molson Corbin, and those have already been submitted towards the county. We're going to look at them on the advisory, and then we'll have to go ahead. So we're still talking maybe next spring breaking ground if we can get a bid. If we can get a bid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big thing. Councilors
Yeah.
is getting a bid that we can afford and getting a contractor who's willing to do the work.
Right.
So,
So it's
yeah.
in the pipeline.
It's in the pipeline.
Yeah.
The state has really stepped up on grant funding with our tiny airport, well, with most general aviation airports in the state over the last year. They really funded some good money through legislation. The Part 135 operations is a state fund to get professional commercial service in certain airports. We're one of them. So the state has taken a big interest in it. Cy Trujillo, the commissioner for the current Colfax County, has taken a huge interest in our airport and has actually invited us to go see other airports with him so that we could give him advice and talked about it. So even even the chair of the Colfax County is recognizing this airport.
Real quick, the apron is the side, is the little small one, right?
It's the parking lot, sorry,
Okay,
it's where planes park.
Gotcha.
We
thank
park
you.
on an apron.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
I didn't know if that was
I'm happy. I flew
the
today,
whole
so
like
I'm
side by
happy.
the way, or that was okay. Thank you.
Question.
Good question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have no old business and new business. First, we have a discussion approval of resolution 2023-51, a resolution to apply for and accept a match waiver for NMDOT from NMDOT for the Transportation Project Fund TPF CS Ranch Valley Road. Is there a motion, please?
Make a motion for discussion and approval of resolution 2023-51, a resolution to apply and accept for a match waiver from NMDOT for the Transportation Project Fund CS Ranch Valley Road.
A second.
Second.
And then we'll turn the floor over to Julie Kulhan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, Manager Madrid, and Clerk Boggs. Before you have a resolution to apply for and accept some matching funds, which is basically free money from the NMDOT to go to meet our match, so we can get that project going, get it out to bid. And I'll stand for any questions you may have.
I don't think so. Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor Pro Tem Billingsley.
Aye.
Councilor Curry. Aye. Councilor Houck.
Aye.
Councilor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have the discussion approval of resolution 2023-52, a resolution for fiscal year 2022-2023 final quarter financial report year ending June 30, 2023. Is there a motion?
I make a motion for discussion approval of resolution 2023-52, a resolution for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 final quarter financial report ending June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, and then we'll turn the floor over to Manager Madrid and Michael Steininger on the phone.
Go ahead, Michael, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Councilors, Manager Madrid. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Steininger. Up until December, I was Special Director with DFA Local Government Division. My job was to travel the state, well, pre-COVID anyway, my job was to travel the state and help municipalities and counties that were having various difficulties, needed help with quarter reports, turnovers, many of the same things you're experiencing now. I was actually at Angel Fire back in 2014 when you were trying to get your audits caught up, and enjoyed my time there. So I thank you for the opportunity to help the village again. I sent, hopefully you have four documents regarding the quarter report. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll just explain what they are, but the one that I do want to go through in a little bit of detail is the one that says report recap. It lays portrait-wise, it has all the funds going down the left-hand side. Does everyone have that?
The one with your signature on it, Michael?
Yes. Actually, thank you for saying that. My copy doesn't have my signature. I should have just said that, yes.
Yes.
Okay, is everyone set? So, okay.
Oh, I've got it.
Last two pages, I think.
This one has a signature at the top.
Thank you.
You got it? We're there.
All right, Mayor and trustees, just to kind of give you, most of you probably are aware of this statement, you've seen it before, but I do things differently than most of the people in the field having been around for a lot of years and having gone through the development of this. So I want to just kind of go over what it is that you're looking at so that you understand what you're seeing. Starting from the left and going right, the first column that says cash is the beginning cash that you had as of July 1st, 2022. One of the things that I want to mention on that is that in the process of putting this report together, the original balance of $21.6 million was almost $4.8 million overstated. Now, before anyone panics on that, it could be part of the conversion problem. It could also be a difference in the definition of cash. When I call something cash for the purpose of this report, I'm talking about your, as Manager Madrid alluded to, your primary checking account, what we call the pooled cash report, or the pooled cash account, which is what primarily runs the village. It does not include the NMFA accounts. It does not include the checking account that holds your bond money for the court. It is the account that has most of your day-to-day stuff. So it could be a definition difference, but there was a difference in that. The investment column going to the right is any money that your financial statements indicated that was not in the pooled cash. So this would be, and there's a detailed schedule also included in your packet called Schedule of Investments that delineates every single account that makes up that $6,700,000. You can see it by fund. You can see what it is. You can see where it's located. So I won't go into that. The next three columns, revenues, transfers, expenditures, should be self-explanatory. I do agree with Manager Madrid's statement that I have some concern regarding the fact that you do not do transfers. I would expect a place the size of Maxwell or Des Moines to maybe not have transfers because they only have a couple funds. But and some of this may go back to how you converted. It does concern me that you are not using transfers. That doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong. It's just highly unusual for an entity of your size. But it's only a concern that I have with that. The column that says adjustments, which you've probably not seen filled out before because most people don't do it the way it's supposed to be done, is a reconciling column. You can think of it like when you reconcile your checking account. The bank says you have so much, your checkbook says you have so much, and then you account for the differences. That's what this column does. It's what gets us from the beginning cash balance, plus our revenues, plus our investments, minus our expenditures, to what our ending pooled cash balance is. It consists primarily of the $4 million that the beginning cash was off, and all the differences between payables and receivables between June 30th of 22 and June 30th of 23. I'm not going to get into an accounting lecture on how that's done. There's also a schedule that's included. It's called the Quarterly Report Adjustment Schedule that details exactly what makes up every one of those components. So, for example, if you look at the $509,219.20, it's negative under general fund. If you look at that adjustment schedule, you will see the three things that make up that amount. For the most part, these are non-cash entries. They're just the difference between when you bill your utility customers, that shows up in revenue, but until they pay the bill, it doesn't hit the checking account. So you have to account for that timing difference, and that's what this column does.
Are these basically journal entries or to bring?
They're not really, Mayor, Counselor, they're not really journal entries. If you happen to see the report of adjustment schedule, it's yellow at the top, has a tan line after that. They're primarily differences between what was your balance as of June 30th, 22, and what was your balance as of June 30th, 23, to account for all of those revenue and expenditure items that happened during the year, such as the billing, such as differences in liabilities. You know, during the year you pay off some of your debt. Well, that goes through expense as it should, but then when the auditors get to it, they put it where it belongs, and we need to adjust for that. So they're not journal entries per se. That's not to say that occasionally they won't cause one to be generated. If we have to, for example, if we wound up with a negative ending cash balance, we would have to do a journal entry transferring cash from one fund to another to cover that. Then it could be there.
Thank you.
Since that column does create a lot of questions, especially for first-time people that I explain it to, is there any other questions regarding that column? Okay. The next one that says balance is your ending cash balance by fund, and these numbers tie out to your pool cash report. I'm aware of the fact that there is still about a $60,000 discrepancy in your pool cash that goes back to last year. I don't know whether it's conversion related or not. We still need to address that. But this column ties to you what is called the pool cash report that Ms. McPeak was sent me so I could cross verify it. And assuming that your bank reconciliations are being done, that number is as valid and as solid as it can be. The column after that is reserve. You are all probably aware that you are required to keep a 1/12 reserve. It does not have to be in a bank account or anything, although I'm aware you have what's called a reserve checking. In theory, it's just money that you can't spend because you have to have something left over. In your case, with $11 million in cash, a $400,000 reserve is more than adequately covered. This picture is a picture of your entire village by fund as of June 30th. Now, what I cannot address, because Manager Madrid and I, when we discussed this earlier along with Robert, the auditor, was do we clean up the system first and then file the report, or do we file the report and then go back? The advantage of doing it this way, where we file the report now and we clean it up later, is you get off DFA's radar. Manager Madrid is aware of all the nasty emails he's been getting from DFA because the budget was due July 31st. DFA is required to approve them as of the first Monday in September. There's no immediate consequences financially for being late, as opposed to if you're late with the audit, but we decided that it would be better to go ahead and get this filed, get DFA processing, because just as you were discussing earlier regarding needing to make some changes for the officers, you can't do a budget adjustment until DFA's approved the budget. So it's in this case, it's better to get it filed, get DFA going through the approval process and getting it done. I don't recall anything unusual in the process of doing this. With no disrespect to the former finance director, it appears that the accounts or the departments were not reviewed in the fact that there were some expenses that were just out there. They were standalone. They were not included in a department. That may have been conversion related, I don't know. But it did require moving things around a little bit. But other than that, I did not see anything in either your internal financial statements or in the processing of this report that would give me concern, other than what I already mentioned being the $4.7 million beginning cash difference. The village ended June 30th with $19.7 million in pooled cash. Combined with the $6.7 million in investments, you finished the year at just under $26,500,000 in cash. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
One question, Michael. This is Morris Madrid. Would you concur with my recommendation to approve the fourth quarter report?
I would.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have a real quick question, and it might be getting into the weeds, but help me understand, and now I'm just on the year-to-date actuals, page 1. When it says that we ended up with a negative $509,000 balance, it also says on the top of the other, where did that money come from? Was it, because it's not broken down by department, it's just kind of, well, we lost, we operated in the red, $500,000. Or am I just not understanding this?
Mayor, councilors, that's a good question. Before I answer that, let me make sure that I'm looking at the same thing you are.
Sure.
When you say the 500,000, are you talking about the recap report and the number that appears in the adjustment column?
So I'm looking, I see the same number in both reports. So there's I don't know which one this is called. I just see on the top it says Village of Angel Fire Municipal Quarterly Report Adjustment Schedule.
On page 2.
Yes, or I guess this says page 1 of 2. I don't know where this is.
Oh, you're on page 1.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it would be page 1 of that. And then if you go down to and then the same numbers in the year-to-date actual report when it starts breaking down all of the actual funds, and that balance is still negative 509,000.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was addressing the same number you're asking.
Sure.
That 509,000 is comprised of three parts, as outlined on that report adjustment schedule. The beginning cash balance from July of 22, the difference between what was reported in July of 22 versus what your financial statements say now, cash was reduced by $173,883. What that entry is, I don't know. I didn't have access to your system or your records. I could only go off of the balance sheet and the budget report. So that was that component. The other two parts are the changes between last June's assets in this June's assets and last June's liabilities and this June's liabilities. So the $196,701 means that you have more assets now than you had back then. You acquire assets generally by spending money. That's why the 196 is negative. The liability as of June 30th, 22 showed a negative 138,000. As of June 30th, 23, it shows a negative 276,000. That's a separate problem, that liabilities are negative, but that also means that you spend $138,600 paying down bills from one year to the next. So it is a change in cash, but it is not an issue as far as cash is missing, cash is misplaced, we lost money. All that column is a reconciling item between what the report says and what you actually have in the bank. Again, the example is you bill out your utility billing, so you record it on July 1st for June 30th. You record, say, $100,000 in revenue in the month of June, but during the month of July, people are going to pay that. So in order to reconcile that, you have to put in an adjustment saying, we billed $100,000, but that was in revenue. It's not in cash yet, so we're going to reduce that revenue number down. It's strictly an accounting mechanics to adjust the report, like your bank reconciliation. This report said your cash balance was one thing. Your pooled cash report said something else. The difference was the 509, and then I broke down what comprised that difference.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't think so, sir.
Hold up. Yeah, I do. I just have to find them. They're buried, and it's more just information for myself, so I actually truly understand when we find it. So there was an adjustment in the roads department that I didn't understand. If I can find it.
Are you back still on that quarterly report adjustment schedule?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
Road Street was a negative 1.2 million.
Yeah, but there's a difference. So did we overspend by 1.2? But there's a couple of numbers in there that come to a difference of $94,000. So were we $94,000 over budget? Which, I mean, with all the projects that we had going on, that's the thank you.
Okay. Mayor, councilors, that's a good question. I thank you for asking that. This report, the quarterly report adjustment schedule should not be in any way interpreted as a profit or loss statement.
Okay.
That is what the only vertical page that I handed out, that says detailed report submitted by fund department. That includes a profit and loss statement. All this report adjustment schedule does is say, what was the difference between what the report said we had in cash versus what we actually had in cash? And in this case, using your example of the road street, there was a difference of $1.2 million. 1.1 of it goes back to the beginning cash balance, which again could have been a conversion issue. It could be a difference of interpretation between the person who did your budget last year and mine. And the $94,000, if in the four other items that are highlighted in an orange or tan color, I can't explain. If you go back and look at the June 30th financial statement, using the one that you brought up, it shows that there was $94,400 in fund balance. In essence, profit over the life of that loan. However, as of June 30th of 23, that $94,000 has disappeared. And I don't know where it's at. And there were 5 of those, and those I can pretty well pretty well know from experience are going to be conversion issues. Because I did notice in a lot of the notes where it talked about zero out after closing, inactivate after closing, and in theory, whatever you finish June 30th with is what you should have on July 1st. In the 5 cases of these colored ones, that didn't happen. But this statement, the quarterly report adjustment, should not be viewed as your cash, how much cash you have, should not be viewed as a profit and loss statement. It does not serve that purpose. All it explains is your reconciliation between what the report said and what you really have.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know. Is there another question?
I'm sure they can be answered in the next section as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure which one they belong in, it's just general questions, so.
Mayor Pro Tem Billingsley.
Aye.
Councilor Curry. Aye. Councilor Howe.
Aye.
Councilor Hubbard.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have the discussion approval of resolution 2023-53, a resolution approving the fiscal year 2023-24 final operating budget. Is there a motion?
Make a motion for discussion approval of resolution 2023-53, a resolution approving the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 final operating budget.
Second.
Thank you. We turn the floor back over to Manager Madrid and Michael Stoninger.
Mayor, Council, Michael, I'm gonna go over just a basic run of how this budget process was approached. We did take the kind of hybrid stand of we will keep the input from the department heads. As I said before, there's personal services and benefits as one category, operating costs as another, and capital items as the third. We kept the last two pretty much intact. There were no major adjustments made in there, unless they were glaring and completely unreasonable. Where we did modify the budget materially was in the area of salaries, because I could not find a system, a method, any analysis, any reasonable reason for the numbers that were in there. So what I did, and Michael will tell you this, that these budget numbers contain supporting schedules. One of the supporting schedules is the salaries and benefits schedule. So by the time that we were involved in this budget preparation, the 8% as approved by the council had been implemented and was reflected in the payroll reports. So I took those payroll reports, generated the payroll summary sheet. Those are the numbers, department by department and fund by fund, that Michael used to incorporate into the final budget with the 8% only. That's why when the mayor asked me earlier, did you incorporate anything else? The answer was no. I'll give you an example. In the finance department, the interim budget was at over 400, it was at 388,000, an increase of 100,000 from one year to the next. The actuals were considerably less than that. So reasonably, basing the current year budget on present salaries made sense. Given that, I did a comparison for the other categories. What was, let's say, the streets department maintenance cost from one year to the next? Well, in the current budget that you're looking at tonight for fiscal year 24, it's a little higher. Most of the budgets are like that. They're a little higher than the year before, which I think is reasonable given the price of just about everything. So we took the path where we adjusted salaries to actual. We pretty much left the other categories alone. Once again, I want to reiterate that all of these budgets combined together by fund, all the general fund budgets roll up together onto the summary sheet that I keep harping on as the guide that DFA uses to evaluate our budget. As an example, in the general fund, the revenues are estimated at 7.9 million, expenditures estimated at 7.5 million. Had we left the salaries the way they were, we would have had expenditures way above revenues. That's not allowable. That's not good fiscal management. However, leaving the other categories alone made it, frankly, easier to get this budget done on a timely basis and gives the departments a little bit more leeway in their operations. It also, as you see tonight, gave us the ability to approve some increases in compensation without affecting the bottom line of that department. So that's the overview of the approach that we took and what we had to deal with from the interim budget to the budget that you have in front of you tonight. We did as much as possible correct any overestimated revenues. In some areas, we had to estimate activity that had not been budgeted before. In some of the reports, you're going to see amounts that were received and unspent. And you may see some cash balances that say unreserved cash balances. Law Enforcement Protection Fund is a good example of that. Well, it says unreserved, it's not available for anything. It still has to be spent with the intent of that fund. So where you see terminology like that, it's more of an accounting term than a real term that means that cash is available. I'm not sure of anything else. I think the budgets are reasonable. I want to reiterate, this is a living document subject to budget adjustment, up or down or straight across. We will be monitoring these budgets and presenting similar data to you more often and in the same detail for your monitoring. In general, I do recommend the approval of this budget. There are details, I'm sure, that we're going to find that need to be adjusted. That's okay. In general, the village is in solid financial condition. The idea in having Michael lead us in this and having our auditor and our DFA analysts participate is not only to prepare to present this budget to you tonight, but to be on solid ground for the audit that's coming up. And that is the importance of the cash balances. Our cash balances are really the foundation of starting and ending a fiscal year for both budget and audit. Any other background you want to talk about, Michael?
Thank you, Manager. In reading this report, I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that if you look at the recap page on the quarterly report where we talked about ending cash balance, a total of 26 million, just under 26,500,000. If you look at the budget, the total between the column that's called cash and investments is your 26,497. So the beginning cash balance carries over. An earlier comment was made regarding DFA approving the interim budget that had possibly had some flaws in it. I've never worked with my colleagues on approving budgets. I've only prepared them. I've never reviewed them, but I do know, and I did it on yours, I do know there are certain areas that DFA will check. For example, I adjusted your property tax revenues to what DFA formula comes out to. So I know that they won't comment on that because it's based on their formula. As Manager Madrid pointed out, the bulk of the changes between the a budget approved in May and the one we're presenting tonight were payroll related changes. The only other area that there was some sizable changes, it was in debt service. Ms. McCree sent me a bunch of files. I contacted your other consultant, Chris Gardner, to see what he's accumulated over the years. Because we're missing some good amortization schedules on a couple of these loans. So I know there's a weakness there. The biggest one being the last two GEO bonds that you approved. There is no debt service in the budget for those two GEO bonds because nobody was able to locate the bonds. Excuse me. Nobody was able to locate the bond documents in time to prepare this, to present it, to meet the deadline to present it tonight. That will have to be a budget adjusted once somebody finds those documents. Another change that I made was like in law enforcement protection. Statute requires that money be spent in full every year, so I adjusted the budget to make sure that ended up as zero. Had I not done that, DFA would have kicked the budget back. Needing that fixed, we would have to fix it, come back before you to address, and I've learned a few things over 10 years of what they look for, so I just arbitrarily addressed them. I did lower the fire protection. The initial budget was at $552,000. Per the letter from the fire marshal's office, you're only going to receive $422,000. So I did adjust that down. Again, DFA has access to that. If we had submitted it that way, they would have questioned it, so it wasn't worth it. On the payroll, I do know that also from going through and updating the budget based on the schedule that Manager Madrid provided, there are some formula errors in it. How significant they are, I don't know, because I didn't test every single one of them. But for example, when I was going through it and I looked at Ms. McPeak's salary, it's like, well, based on her hourly rate, her salary should be this, and it was only half of that. Come to discover that the formula for another employee who only is 40% was added there. So at some point, not immediately, not right away, but at some point before the budget is updated again, that spreadsheet should be reviewed and those formulas fixed. Again, I don't know if it's significant. It didn't appear to be based on the ones I caught. But those are the only real, that and the two GEO bonds are the only two weaknesses that I know still need to be addressed before you go through this process next May. And with that, I have no other comment on the budget.
Mayor, with that, I do want to make a comment and a recommendation that, that the village conduct a mid-year review on the budget. and, you know, that it be scrutinized in detail then, and that we implement payroll projections and other projections for a very thorough mid-year review and anticipating mid-year budget adjustments. Thank you, Rick.
So I have one question. Because of COVID and other reasons, most of our departments have been understaffed. If it's a department of 5, for example, but we have 3 employees, did you project for 2 more or?
We budgeted all full-time equivalents, even the vacant ones. Yes,
All the way across?
yes, with the 8% increase,
Okay.
all the way across.
So the police department was authorized another,
That was included in the budget. The additional position was budgeted, so we could fill that position today.
But, but it looks like they only got a $36,000 increase from last year. The police department, which makes sense like that, because that's like the 8%, 8% is like 33,000. So how do we budget for a position without actually like building in? So we gave them the 8% raise, but it didn't, I don't see where we actually budgeted in that additional position.
Yes, sir?
Let me look up the file and I can give you I can tell you what was budgeted.
Okay.
Let me just find that. Salary. They're included, everyone that is charged to PD, fine officer or clerical, there was a 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, there were 7 people charged. There's a police chief, a lieutenant, 3 officers, an admin assistant, and what is described as a community service officer.
do we have a community service?
No, that's the position used, just the classification wasn't changed. But there's an FTE there.
So, Michael, how much was the amount for that position?
And the salary alone for that position is $52,366, including benefits, $84,900.
Okay, one more question for you, Michael. We normally also budget for a uniform clothing allowance, and I don't think it made it this year.
Do you process that uniform allowance through payroll, or do you send the officers to the store and then you pay the store directly?
I don't know the
It's
answer.
through payroll. Twice a year through payroll. It's in June and December.
So it's in,
So it's always been a separate $8,500 line item.
I can't tell you what it's always been, Councilman, but
Right.
it's in.
So this year,
Let me take a look here. Because not everything runs through the payroll spreadsheet. Let me take a look here. I do remember a line item, I think called other benefits, police law enforcement. There is $19,700 budgeted on what is called other employee benefits. What makes that up? I don't know. It's not a part of the payroll schedule.
okay, thank you.
I was gonna ask,
That could be uniforms. It could be gym memberships if you don't have an on-site athletics area. It could be anything, but there is money budgeted for something that is considered a benefit?
That should be the amount that goes through payroll. It's a separate code so that they don't pay tax on a uniform allowance. So it's convenient because it's direct deposit, but it's not taxed. It is a benefit.
The first line item in the budget, that's for general administration salary and wages. It's like on page 3. And then, I don't know how many pages back it is. There's another general administration salary and wages. What were the two, what differentiates the two general administration salary and wages?
Mayor, first, the definition of Department 2002, General and Administration, is just a department heading. So you have a department heading, call that in administration or in the general fund. Some of the other funds have used that department also. It doesn't mean they're related. It's just a, let me okay, first, I wanted to make sure it was you and not another client. For example, if you had people that were dedicated to the joint utility, who all they do is administratively bill customers, take payments. They're not involved with any other aspect of the village. Then you could create a department within the water department called general admin, and those would be your clerical workers, and then your field people, the ones that are out reading meters, fixing leaks, are considered field staff under the Joint Utility Authority Department head. So that is just a heading. It doesn't mean anything in and of itself other than it is just a category heading.
I'm just trying to determine what, the first one's $436,000 and the second one is $849,000. I mean, the rest of them are all kind of grouped by department. Is that, I mean, it seems like it's just kind of nebulous to have it two different ones.
Where?
I think it's on page 13.
Go ahead.
The second one's on, I think, the 13th page. It's under 5. It says 5,000 expenditures or 50,000 expenditures, and then it's general 202 general administration, $849,000.
And you said that's on page 13.
Yeah, 13, and then the first group of general administration salary and wages is on page 3.
Right, that is your administrative staff. They're in Village Hall. That is
The first one?
is made up. Yes, the one on page 3. That is your manager, your clerk, assistant manager, your project manager, your grant writer, human resources, and one maintenance individual. That's what makes up the 434,000.
In procurement, in there?
He's in the other one.
Oh, procurement's in the other?
Okay, I'm still looking for the 800. But what I have is page 13. In the middle of it starts off saying other special revenue. I don't have
That is the page. If you look down near the bottom, there's other expenditures, and then it has general administration 2002, that same page.
Okay, I see where you're at. You're looking at a total, okay. Is the one that said full-time wages 475?
Yes.
Okay. That is, if I'm not mistaken, but let me double check here, is where the wildland fire is being processed through. 407, yes. That is where it's a special revenue fund. The only category that the DFA system allows is an admin. But these are your firefighters that are on deployed on wildland.
So the wildland firefighters aren't in the fire protection budget? So if you add those two, we're at over 2 million. Pretty
They
close to
should,
$2 million.
they should be self-contained at 299, right?
Correct.
Okay.
If their primary job, that 299 is, if you're using it the way that I'm familiar with, that is the fund that strictly processes when your people go out and do wildland fires, and then you bill the state, Homeland Security, somebody, you send somebody a bill and they send you reimbursement for those costs, versus the fire protection people whose primary job is to be available should someone call 911 requiring assistance. It's not to say that they can't do both jobs, but since one is a dedicated employee who's basically there, day in and day out, and the other department, you may not use them for months, and then they may be activated for months, but somebody else is going to pay you or reimburse you for that. So it's just a separate tracking.
Just a quick correction on what was just said. The fire protection revenue, the 20900, that cannot be used for salaries of any kind. That is the allotment from the state for equipment and upkeep of the stations and anything else that we may need.
And Mayor, Council, yes, that is correct. Yeah, now that I think about it, yes, the way it came out, I was thinking of your firefighters that were under the general fund. Okay, yes, he is correct that fire protection money cannot be used for any form of compensation to employees.
So just to clarify, the 849,000 is the wildland firefighters budget for.
So you're looking at 299?
5,000.
5,000.
On page 13, these pages are numbered, so if you.
Yeah, that's one of the enhancements coming out in the new system, because we've complained about that a lot. As I look at this, from what I see here, I don't see anything that says clean and beautiful. I don't see anything other. One thing that is interesting is loan proceeds of 872,000. I don't know if that means you're intending to purchase a wildland truck or additional gear or something. I don't know, but the expenses as listed are all fire related.
That does include slash as well. That
849,000.
yes, and the admin and hazard pay for when they're on deployment.
I mean, this is a fund that in theory you could have budgeted at zero and then just bar throughout the year. But if you have a history of always going out on one or more fires a year, you might as well just put something in and save everybody the hassle. Because in theory, you can't pay them while they're out on the fire if you haven't got the budget authority to do that. So the way this is done, I think, is more prudent. It allows you to immediately dispatch those people to wherever they're needed and not have to worry about adjusting the paperwork after the fact.
Okay, you got more questions? Okay, a question on general operating fund, GRT shared municipal equivalent distribution, 2.5 million. Where does that money come from? It's on the first,
That is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
it's on the first page.
Okay. The state share is the 1.225 share of the 5 and 1/8, I think now, or 5% that the state charges on purchases, when you go and buy something. When you make a purchase, you pay GRT. The bulk of it is charged by the state. The county has a portion of it. The village has a portion of it. You get 100% of yours. You get none of the county, and the state shares 1.225%, I believe it still is, of what they collect, and they give it back. And they give it back to you. So that is based on what was received last year.
Okay, so just 3 or 4 lines above that is GRT municipal local option, $3 million.
Okay, Mayor, Councilors, that line item is the GRT that you or previous governing bodies have imposed over the years.
Okay, it's local.
Yes, and it's 100% yours.
All right, going all the way over to lodger's tax. We're showing 422,000 projected for printing, publishing, and advertising. I was wondering a breakdown on that.
Let me get something here. Mayor, Councilors, there was no change to that line item from the interim budget to this one, so I don't know what made that up.
Okay, thank you. So then you probably don't know what the other operating costs of 81,000 are.
No, I'd have to go back and look through your financial statements to see what was put into that category. Offhand, I don't know. The only thing that was changed in lodger's tax between the interim budget and the final budget was, as Manager Madrid has mentioned several times, the payroll budget was updated.
All right, thank you. So my last questions, probably, going all the way over to solid waste. We show $200,000 equipment and machinery. What are we gonna purchase with that, Ben?
2 new trailers.
2 new trailers.
Yes, I want 2 new transport trailers to go to the landfills. We only have 3 guys. I think 2 more will benefit the village of Angel Fire because we have more people where our numbers are up. We're producing more solid waste and municipal solid waste. I think 2 more trailers would be beneficial. They were $70,000 when we bought them back in 2018. I went up to $100,000 a piece to adjust for inflation at $5,000 a year over the last 6 years.
Okay, and then the 100,000 for vehicles, what are you purchasing there?
That
There's a second line item that says 100,000 vehicles.
I'm sure at the time back in March, I could have given you an answer, but let me get to you on that, sir, and I will have an answer for you before the end of this week.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is anyone else just super confused by this document? I've looked at it for days and days and I can't. I think it would be very helpful to be able to compare last year's budget to this one and understand like line item by line item, what's gone up, what's gone down. Because sometimes there's discrepancies in funds that is like, oh, there's more than an 8% increase, year over year between the fire department. But I don't know if it's in salaries. It's so hard to figure out like I don't know. I'm lost in this. I've looked at it. I've asked questions. I just don't. I don't know. I'm struggling to actually understand what I'm voting on actually, because it's hard to tell just where everything has gone. Yeah.
You're not the only one. Look at all my tabs.
Mayor, councilors, I can empathize with that. The document that's before you is the state reporting required system. It is not out of your in-code system. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to look, but there may be a way to generate a report directly out of Tyler that would say, here was the budget last year, here's the budget this year, and here's the percentage change. I don't know for certain it does that, but it's a good system that has a lot of capability. It probably does have something like that. However, until your internal system is updated to what is approved by the state, I would be leery to do anything right now until that budget is updated.
So when do we think the conversion will be completed?
I can answer that, Councilor. The conversion has been completed. However, there were issues with it. So it is complete. And the year of this year's audit, fiscal year 23, will be audited on its own without that conversion factor. To Councilor Billingsley's point, I understand, Councilor, and I emphasize, I agree with you. This format is only for tonight's meeting. We should have original budget, adjustments, adjusted budget, expenditures, encumbrances, available budget with prior year comparisons. I'm not familiar enough with the system to generate that today, but I can tell you the system will do that. We have to find out how to get it done.
So is it reasonable to ask for we need 72 hours to post a public? I mean, is it reasonable to ask for 3 days? I mean, is that a doable time frame? Because I just don't feel comfortable voting. Because, I mean, if I understood you correctly, Mr. Simninger, we have to approve a budget and then we can then compare it in the state, in the state reporting system, but we've already approved a budget and then we get the numbers to show the differences. Did I understand that correctly?
Doesn't sound like to me.
Mayor, councilors, yes, because I don't know what's in your system. My guess is your system still comprises of what you approved back in May, not what is here. And so if Manager Madrid was to run that report, you're going to be comparing what last year's budget was to what the draft budget was from May, not this one. And that's why I said yes. Until that is updated. Now, if you want to have something done first, where that information is compiled to your satisfaction, there's nothing that the quarter report's already been approved. I can send that off tomorrow, and DFA can start on that, and we can come back and look at the budget. It's whatever you're comfortable with. We can approve this as it is, and then compile and put that information in once it's approved, and then compile what you're looking for on differences, or we can wait and have that done first and then come back and visit it. It's entirely your call.
And Mayor and Council, my recommendation is to approve this document, get it loaded, and be able to make a valid comparison to last year in the format on ENCODE.
But why do we have to approve it first to get comparisons? That's where, maybe I'm just,
Because
maybe
you
I'm
can't
just not
put
on
it
my
in the
game tonight.
system
Maybe I
until
just
it's
don't
approved.
truly understand what's going on.
Because you can't put it into the system until it's approved. We can't load it into ENCODE until DFA approves it.
All right, let me, Manager, let me slightly correct that. It could be loaded in. What has a tendency to happen is it would get loaded in, or the reason I don't like working off internal statements is the governing body approves a budget based on the format they're familiar with. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. However, that information, more times than not, is not what gets sent to the state. And so the state's approving one budget, you're approving a different budget, and by law, you're bound by what the state approves, whether yours agrees with it or not. I've seen some budgets be over $5 million difference. My thing is in order to not keep adjusting your system and running the risk of creating future issues, is to upload an approved budget. Do you have to? No, but I would encourage it.
Can I ask, so, I mean, this is my second budget that third that I've been in, and it's always dropped on us the Friday before the Tuesday meeting. And I guess I kind of question, is that normal, or is it just happen? Because I don't really have enough time to approach the different department heads and discuss, these numbers with them in advance. And I would have liked to ask most of these questions before being here.
Well,
Is that normal? I don't know. I mean, is that normal?
Well,
You've been in
Counselor,
other ones.
let me tell you what's normal. Normal is that the governing body is informed and educated way before, during, and at the time that you approve the interim budget. By then, you should all be intimately familiar with what's going to be proposed as final. Because generally, there are minimal changes from interim to final. Usually it's just the cash balances that are just factual. In your case, regretfully, you didn't have that advantage because you approved this. And this is really, to put it from my own nerd perspective, your first real class. And, I can apologize for that, but I can't change it. All I can tell you is the reason that I chose to present it in the DFA LGBMS format is for complete disclosure to you all. So you'll be able to see, this is what it was, this is what it is, and this is exactly what's going to the state for approval without any changes in between. As a matter of fact, once it's approved, we won't even be uploading it. Michael will upload it for us.
So if we approve this tonight, how long does it take DFA to approve it?
Well, it would take a day or two for Michael to actually upload it into the LGBMS system, and probably, I'm gonna say 2 to 4 weeks, Michael, for DFA to issue an approval letter.
Mayor, councilors, in a normal environment, I'd say yes. Where this differs slightly is that next week is the first week of October. All the quarterly reports for the period ending September will start rolling in, and the new LGBMS budget modules will start being introduced. So I can't guarantee that it will get the priority that it would had it been submitted in July when it was due. Counselor, and I apologize not knowing which one was making the comment. I can't address what you mean by it gets put on you Friday. Yes, this was done on short notice because you're already late. The normal process, most municipalities that I work with outside of a Cruces or a Albuquerque or something like that, usually start the process in February, March. They start gathering the numbers, the management, the department heads get together, a draft is put together, which is then presented to the governing body. You can meet with the department heads, a public meeting, whatever the process is, at your discretion. And that's where you usually have the opportunity to ask those very important questions, those pointing questions about why this, why that, what's changed, how are you addressing this? At this point, especially with me, I'm at a disadvantage because I wasn't involved in any of that process. I only have what was submitted to the state in June, and then working with Ms. McPeak and Manager Madrid to get you a document tonight. Normally, your finance director would do all of this, who would have that knowledge of those meetings, of those conversations. So yes, you are kind of getting this dumped on you. I'm not going to deny that. But it's merely because of the timing we find ourselves in.
Okay, there's no good solution here. If we go ahead and approve this tonight, I would ask that council be guaranteed that when the DFA approval comes back, we first sit down and do a work session. And we work our way through it, and then we come to a council meeting so that we don't have the public sitting here for 3 hours and not understanding any more than we do.
If Mayor, if I may, I didn't catch the first part. I caught with DFA approval and then something about a workshop, and I missed what the phone cut out on in between.
I said there's no good answer here. So I was asking the question, if we go ahead and approve it, can we get a final cut on what DFA approves in a work session and then bring it to council just to let the public know that we've done that?
Mayor, Councilor, I have no issue with that. I would defer that to Manager Madrid. That would be under his purview.
I'm gonna say no, Mayor and Councilors, because I don't want you to know anything. Of course. The entire document and process was intended to be for full disclosure. And that's exactly what should have been done, and let's do it.
All right.
What DFA is heading toward, and it's getting a lot of pushback from those of us that are in the field. DFA is heading toward a concept of what they call one budget, two approvals. And what that simply means is the budget that is submitted on June 1st is going to be your final budget going in next year. And the only thing that you're going to be allowed to change is the cash balances as of June 30th once they get reconciled. They've been, in my cases, because of the unique fact that I go into facilities or entities like your own where we're at a disadvantage, they cut me a little bit of slack and they allow me to change anything that is needed because it's to everyone's advantage. But where they're heading is they're going to say, well, if your May 1st, or if your June 1st budget had problems with it, oh, well, you're gonna have to live with that until after the budget's approved, and then you can fix it, and then fix the changes. So what management has said is the direction now, which are the last of the entities that are coming on. So I see in another maybe 2 or 3 years, what we're discussing tonight would not be happening. All we would be doing is saying, here were our cash balances that we projected. Here's what our bank reconciliation was for June 30th. Nothing else will be allowed to change. So it does put the onus back on the preliminary where the bulk of that work should be. By the time we get to this point in July, the only thing we should be doing is dropping in the reconciled cash balances, making sure that nothing pops negative, and get it approved and submitted. That's the only thing that should be getting changed, and in the very near future, it's the only thing that will be allowed to change.
I mean, I'd still like more time before I vote yes on it. I don't know if it's like a 72-hour, I don't know what it looks like, but I just have a hard time like approving something and then, oh, we'll just come back and change it and then we'll make adjustments. I feel like we should just get it right the first time. But I don't know, maybe I don't. Maybe I just don't understand what's going on.
Any more questions? Thank you, Michael. Oh!
Again,
You okay?
scared me.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then call for a vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Billingsley,
Hey,
Councilor Curry,
Aye.
Councilor Howell,
Nay.
Councilor Humbert,
Nay.
motion fails.
so before we adjourn though, can we like figure out when we're gonna actually do this? Because I don't want this to just die and then we're gonna sit around for two and come back. I mean, 72-hour notices, that's the public, that's like the shortest time frame. Is it doable to get this done in 72 hours? Is it 2 weeks? Is it, I mean, we're already late.
But
So,
if we wait till after October, that's why they wanted it in now.
Mayor, if I can address that.
We'll lose the IACP.
Number one, you still can bring this back and approve it if you choose to.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give you a couple of reasons why. The first one is a letter that we have from DFA that it is due on the 1st. And there are consequences for that. And the second one is, fix what? Fix what? I need some direction. If I don't have specifics, I can't change anything.
sure.
And Counselor, with all due respect, I can't read your mind.
No, that's fair. I guess what I'm still trying to say is I don't understand where these, like, the differences is. I don't think it's unreasonable to be able to ask, like, what did we spend last year and what are we budgeting this year? Without me having to go through a calculator line by line and trying to figure it out.
He just said it has to be dropped in first, and Michael's the expert.
And
But
Counselor,
then, but why do I have to, yeah,
It's municipal.
that's,
and I
doesn't
mean,
make
again,
any
Counselor, I
It's
mean,
how the state does.
this process started back in March. And the questions that everyone has should have been asking me. Really?
Well, yes, but it wasn't.
Well, it's questions from you guys.
In the previous time I was on council, the end of February, 1st of March, we had our first public hearing and we began the process, and by the end of May, 1st of June, we had hashed through all of this. We knew what was going on.
And that's
And now things
exactly
are
the way it should be,
slapping us.
Counselor.
And we did
But
that.
I cannot change what has happened.
I know that, I know
April
that,
and now.
I'm not. I'm
well,
not-
if anything, 3 days gives me time to go through and do all the math. I mean, because it has to be done by the 1st, which is, what is that, Sunday?
Sunday.
Well, then can we schedule a meeting for Friday? 72 hours from now? Because,
And then you would give us the changes on Friday?
Workshop, special council meeting.
well, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out what we
We
can
already
do.
voted on it, so we can't.
Well, what we can do, Counselor, is still approve this budget and adjust it. That's the reasonable, prudent thing to do. Because you have my assurance, you have Michael's assurance that it is a working, good document. It's not perfect, no budget is ever perfect, but it is a start. That I can guarantee you. And I can also guarantee you that this, if it is approved and submitted to DFA by the first, the way that they demanded, our credibility will be increased with DFA. And that's an important thing.
Of course, if we go back and vote on it, can we do what Chuck suggested and what Matt suggested, is that we approve it, but then we get a budget from last year? Surely that can be printed out from something. I don't know what the hell we're using now, but surely it can be printed out. And we can sit down with that and sit down with this and do exactly what Matt said we can do. We can compare each one.
Sure.
And in a work
Absolutely.
session, so that we
Absolutely.
have an understanding of what we're truly voting on.
If the clerk will swear me in, I will. You will.
Don't put that on it.
That's absolutely doable, Counselor.
Swearing. Oh, already helps you.
So
Okay.
part of our problem is the council didn't do its job. When the first two budgets came to us, we accepted what was given to us and we shouldn't have. No, now we're gun shy.
I absolutely understand that.
Mhm.
And that's the reason why you have all this information before you. I know it's a lot. I do. I'm a nerd. I enjoy this stuff. Maybe you don't, but this is to the last penny, complete transparency.
Well,
That's what it is, and that's what you all demand, and that's what you got.
I enjoy it also, but I've never seen the DFA format. I've always seen the village format.
Right.
So this format doesn't make sense.
Well, you have to be used to it, Counselor, and I get that. But what I'm telling you is, this is a good document to start with. Yes, I will provide your side-by-side prior year line item by line item comparison.
I was going to ask what you're used to seeing, and you just answered that. You're not used to seeing this document, which I find disturbing, but is okay. So, yes, in order to give you a comparison within your system, which you're more familiar with, that will require a little bit more work and a little bit more manipulation, because this budget is not in that system. And I don't honestly know what is in the system. I don't know if that, in comparison, is something that could be relatively easily extracted, or if it's gonna require a lot of manual manipulation. I don't know at this point to answer that. If we were talking about comparing the state format from last year to the state format from this year, I could drop that fairly easy, but I don't get the sense from your concern that is going to address your concerns. I'm thinking that would be better off coming out of the system. I teach tomorrow morning until noon. I could go in afterwards and see if there's something in the system that we can get out, that we can meet your request for a Friday deadline. I don't know at this point. I don't know if anything was even entered from the interim. I don't know what the process was. All I have access to is the state system, and that's what I work with. I don't even know if the budget was, if the draft budget was even put into your system.
The interim budget was entered into the system.
Right,
Heather
the,
says
the
it was-
interim budget was uploaded into the system as an interim. Mayor, please do not adjourn the meeting. Mayor and Councilor,
We need a motion.
please,
What's that?
We need a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all good. Yeah.
okay, if we're done, I really need your attention. I really need your attention. Please don't make me beg. I am asking you, and I am, on my reputation as a financial expert all over the state of New Mexico, telling you this is a good document. As a former DFA employee, I'm telling you this is a good document. As a former city manager who got a DFA letter that in 30 days in Las Vegas, we are taking over your finances. That's what they used to do back then. And a year later, got consecutive budget awards. What I'm saying is, this, if you don't want to put faith in my credibility, I understand. I'm asking you to put faith in this document's credibility. It is there. I think Michael will agree with me on that. And I absolutely am telling you, I understand your concerns. And I will teach you. I will give you all the answers that you want. Even the ugly ones, even the bad ones, even the ones that might be embarrassing. Because I'm sure there's gonna be some that come up and, well, we were gonna buy tricycles for the community center. But we're not supposed to do that. We might have some stupid things that come up, but we need to comply with state regulations. This document does that. I'm asking you to recall your last action and change the vote. Thank you, Mayor.
I mean, can we still meet on Friday? I mean, maybe, right, and maybe it's like, I just
He
need more
said
time.
maybe not, because he just said
Yeah,
maybe
we have to
not.
be 72
Because
hours
he's,
from the
they're
time.
the
It's not
experts.
necessary,
They're the
Counselor.
So it may be
CPAs
Saturday.
and the
So
experts.
essentially it's,
Nothing is being said in concrete.
so then, but if we don't, so now it's like, so if we don't approve the budget, we don't recall the last vote and approve the budget, DFA, we lose credibility, we lose standing, this comes before, so it's, I don't know. You said it well, Chuck, I'll get answers.
I think the frustration is that it's not that we do not think that this is a good document. I think we are concerned because we're reading this document, we have nothing to compare it with, and we want to make sure that the departments are being properly funded for the things that they need and we want them to have. And I think that's where Matt was going with the comparison. I think that's where all of us were going with that.
One more point, councilors. If you want to compare last year's budget to this year's budget, it's probably not a valid comparison. Because last year's budget,
It was a mess also.
between the beginning and the end of the fiscal year, required $12 million, $15 million in adjustments. So you would be comparing to something that wasn't any good. Sorry, that's the way it is.
Excellent.
This is good. This is where we plant our feet on solid ground and forget the past. That's what this is.
So you're asking us to reconsider our vote.
Yes,
You're asking for a motion on that.
yes, I am.
Motion and a second.
And you're just the man to do it, Councilman.
make a motion to reconsider our previous motion on the budget. Previous vote, excuse me.
I'll second that.
Before we vote, I just have to understand the process to make sure that we're all on the same page. We're going to approve this document. This document will be submitted to DFA. It takes X amount of weeks. Once it's submitted, we will then come back and have the report that we'd like to see that generates, but then we can also make budget adjustments to the things that, because I still don't understand where some of these things, like I don't understand where some of this money has come from, or where did it go, or why there's a discrepancy in salaries that's more than 8%. I still don't understand that.
I appreciate what you said. I think that's something that we need to do.
And Counselor, at the risk of finishing your statement, we would take that and have a work session to go through it and compare it, and I'll come up with different scenarios. Because like I said, last year's original budget was not a true picture of what it should have been. But there are valid comparisons to two prior years of actual expenditures to find out exactly which salaries are being charged where, how much overtime there is. All those things, what capital items were purchased. Any type of information that's in there in a format that everybody would like, we can generate. Yes, we can. And I will go on the record, we have a work session to buy the pizza.
And the department heads are a part of that work session.
Of course.
So I guess the next.
We have nothing to hide, Counselor. Whatever the governing body wants, we are an open book. You will never see this again.
Thank you.
When will this take? I guess my last question is, when would that take place? Because is this something that after an election that saddles, when does this happen, prior or after an election?
Anytime.
Well, I'm just saying, like, in this timeline though.
We can have it before, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
wait till the DFA approves.
Sure. I understand, okay.
Very quickly after we get the letter. And if we're in between meeting, you can call a special meeting for a workshop.
Good.
Absolutely.
All right.
So,
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir?
Mayor and councilors, while I cannot offer guarantees of what my former colleagues will or won't do, I have dealt with everything that I know that they look for, I know that they test. With the exception of the two items that I mentioned at the beginning, where I think there is a weakness that needs to be addressed anyway, I do not foresee DFA making any changes to this. I can't guarantee it, but I don't think they're gonna make any changes. I can go ahead and if you approve it, I'll do the upload as quickly as I can so that Manager Madrid can start doing his comparison for you. I went back and checked, and yes, there was a total of $12.5 million of adjustments made during the course of the year. For your comparison, just so that we're all together on this, do you want your comparison based on the budget that was originally approved, or the final one after all the adjustments?
I would say the final one.
say the final one after the
That was the ending picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that. I just wanted to make sure, because the time that he's going to invest in putting this together, I don't want to come to that meeting and then all of a suddenly it's like, well, there's a difference here. Well, I based it on this. I didn't know you wanted it on that. So that's why I wanted to make sure. I think you're doing the right thing on the final budget, because those things change during the year for a reason. If we go back to the original one that was approved, much as we're doing tonight, who knows what that issue was? I don't know enough of your conversion process to know whether that budget was based on good numbers or not. And so I think your concerns are valid. And I'm certainly not opposed to supplying you the answers that you want. I just want to make sure that all the calculations are based on the right information, so we don't ask you to come back to this table for a third time.
Okay.
Thank you.
I need just one more clarifying question that'll drive this. Okay, so earlier I had a question about the police department has a position open, but nowhere in the budget can I see where that is. We can come back after the fact and actually fix those type of things, right? And we're not,
Yes, we can. The short answer is yes.
but
The
that's,
position is
That's
there.
other wages.
but that's
It's a
supposed to
community-
be their like standby time.
The position is there, it's the community service aid. I just didn't change the title on it. But there is a budgeted position there. for
In the
us.
447.
It's the 58,000 plus benefits, which is like 88,000, something like that. Michael answered that earlier.
Okay, so I guess I'm just trying to make sure, okay.
Mayor and councilors, also because I don't have access to nor the knowledge of how information like standby, overtime, those things were calculated. All of those were left alone. The only items that we addressed were the 8% across, the 8% increases, the formula errors that I was able to identify, anything that said standby pay, temporary pay, overtime. I didn't touch any of those because I have no idea where those numbers come from. And I have to assume that since you approved the budget with them in, they were at least reasonably valid.
Those were not adjusted at all. They were left intact.
No, the only thing that was adjusted was full-time wages, Social Security, Medicare, para, health insurance, the workman's comp insurance, and whatever the other one was, the workman's comp fee. Unemployment, thank you. Yes, we did not adjust anything else salary related. All of that was based on I believe it was the last payroll that was done. So it's all current based on it.
Now, just for one clarification. The 18% that the mayor suggested for the law enforcement is going to be enacted, correct?
Implemented by next payday.
I call for the vote.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Do we have all in favor to rescind the previous votes? Aye.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Billingsley.
Aye.
Councilor Curry.
Aye.
Councilor Howell.
Aye.
Councilor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Wait a minute, Counselor. Do we need a formal motion to approve the budget?
Yeah, we do.
I thought that was it.
No, you just
No,
voted
either
to
motion.
rescind.
Mayor Pro Tem Billingsley.
Aye.
Councilor Curry.
Aye again.
Councilor Howell.
Aye.
Councilor Humbert.
Aye.
To rescind.
No, we already did that.
Yeah,
Counselor,
we did,
Mayor, please do not leave after we adjourn. We need your signatures.
Don't adjourn yet. I have a question. Was the consent agenda approved?
Yes, it
Yes.
was.
Okay, thank you.
but,
Yeah,
motion
you
to
can
adjourn.
go.
I made
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We call this meeting adjourned.
We need signatures, Counselors.